All right, we're going to go ahead and get started today. We're going to go ahead and start with the IRS updates for tax year 2022. Now, bear in mind, this is the most current information that we have. If this adjusts or changes, we will notify everyone and let you guys know that this has been modified. So we're going to start with what we're going to cover. What we'll cover today is going to be child tax credit changes, child independent care credit changes, some slight changes to earned income tax credit, the 1099-K, a few other annual changes, and other tax law changes. So child tax credit and advanced child tax credit are reverting back to the pre-2021 partially refundable form. So part of the COVID relief packages was a change to the child tax credit and the dependent child care and dependent care credit. There was a pretty significant increase and significant changes to the credit itself for tax year 2021, but that was only for one tax year. It was not renewed. It had never been discussed to be renewed. So we're going to see pretty sizable shifts in refunds this year comparative to last year. They are going to go down quite a bit. And part of the reason that they're going to go down is because credit amount drops back down to $2,000 per child, $1,600 of which is refundable, or $1,400 of it rather is refundable. $600 is non-refundable. Last year it was $3,000 for children 6 to 17 years old, and $3,600 for children 5 years old and younger. So that's a pretty sizable shift. In addition, the eligibility for children is now those under 17. So 16 and under. Last year it was 17 and under. So that's a slight shift. Thankfully, there were no monthly advance payments this year. So the 8812 goes back to being what it had always been for us, which is pretty much a form we don't really have to do anything on, as opposed to us having to report those advance payments like we did last year. Child independent care credit. So this goes back to, again, pre-2021 form. In 2020 and the years prior, child independent care credit was a non-refundable credit. It is going back to being a non-refundable credit. In 2021, it was a fully refundable credit. But for tax year 2022, it's going back to being non-refundable. The qualifications and the credit amounts are drastically different than they were last year. They're going back to the way it has been before. Starting with the amount of qualifying childcare expenses decreases to $3,000 for one child. Last year it was $8,000, and then $6,000 for two or more children. Last year it was $16,000. So that has a sizable shift on the maximum credit. The maximum credit, which again is non-refundable this year, will be $1,050. Last year it was a $4,000 refundable credit for one child. For two children, it's $2,100 non-refundable. It was $8,000 as a refundable credit. Now, the credit rate income limits are increased or adjusted is probably a more accurate statement than increased. So the credit rate is 50% of the expenses when the AGI is under 15,000. Last year, it was under 125,000. So you're going to have a significant drop in the number of people who qualify for the max credit comparative to last year. Now that percentage drops incrementally between 50 all the way down to 20% when the AGI reaches 43,000. Last year it was 183,000. And then the 20% credit rate applies for all AGIs over 43,000. Last year it was between 183,000 and 400,000. And then last year it was phased out at 438,000 total. This year the credit does not phase out at all. So regardless of their AGI, they will still qualify for at least 20%. Earned income tax credit. a couple slight modifications. Disqualified investment income, the maximum amount of investment income allowed is increased to 10,300. Taxpayers with children without SSN reverting back to the pre-2021 form. This is the probably bigger thing in regards to earned income tax credit. And that is that the criteria for individuals wanting to qualify with no children reverts back to what it was pre-2021. So the maximum age returns to 25. Last year it was lowered to 19. The minimum age returns to 25. It was lowered to 19. The maximum age is 65. Last year it was eliminated. There was no maximum age. So you're going to have some people who qualified for this last year that are not going to qualify this year solely based on their age. The maximum credit is $560. And then the credit is fully phased out at around $16,480 for your single file, so single head household. Married filing joint, $22,610. So here's the max EIC or the max AGI for tax year 2022. You can see for 0, and this is if they have no dependents to claim, it's 16,480 and 22,610, like we just talked about. For 1, 43,492. Married filing joint, 49,622. 2, 3, and then it goes up. The important number to remember is regardless of how many children they have, if their AGI, if they're filing single head of household or widower, if their AGI is over 53,000, they're not going to qualify, or they're very minimally going to qualify, and that's generally what I say. In terms of married filing joint, if they're over 60,000, they're just not going to qualify. And those are important numbers to remember so that if you run into that situation where you're not sure why it's not calculating, that's one of the reasons that'll keep it from calculating. In addition to the investment income, if that investment income's over that limit that we talked about earlier, they would not qualify there either. So as we go forward here, there's a second one. This is the one everybody loves. The maximum earned income tax credit. So it's $560 for 0 children, $37.33 for 1, $61.64 for 2, and then $69.35 for 3 or more. Now, I know that some of you guys will probably use this information in your marketing, and that is fine. My only advice to you is that you use the phrase up to. You may qualify for one of those two. You may qualify for $69.35, or we can get you up to $69.35 if you've got 3 or more dependents, something like that. You don't want to guarantee this amount because you do not know what their AGI is. You do not know what the status of those dependents are. You don't know if they have an ITIN when you're marketing to the general public. So that's just my advice. And I tell you that because I do know of a tax preparer who had 3,000 signs out and the IRS charged her $500 a piece for misrepresentation. So that's there was a $150,000 fine that she had to negotiate with them. So not something you guys are probably going to want. Okay. Form 1099-K. Now this has been all the rage on the news, on social media. So I'm going to try to give you guys some information that we have and that things that we do know. So starting this year, third-party payment settlement networks, so companies like PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, I'm sure there's a few that I'm forgetting, but those are the big ones, are going to be sending 1099-Ks to taxpayers if they are paid over $600 during the year for goods or services, regardless of the number of transactions. Now, this is a substantial shift in policy for these companies, and it's at the direction of the IRS that they're doing this. The IRS has changed what the reporting requirements are. Okay, and previously the 1099-K would have been sent from these third-party settlement networks if they were over 20,000 in gross payments and received more than 200 transactions. So that's going to be a shift. So we're going to see a significantly larger number of 1099-Ks this year. So the change to the reporting threshold means that more people than ever are going to get the 1099-K, right? Remember that the 1099-K reporting is only for money received for goods and services. Now, before somebody asks, because I know somebody will, the question that I will get asked is, how are the third-party settlement companies How is Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, how are they determining whether it's money received for goods or services? And the answer to that question is we don't know. We don't have any idea. They're not supposed to report payments from family and friends, but I'm not sure how they're going to differentiate between those two. And unfortunately, it's kind of something that they are going to have to resolve on their own. Now, in saying that, it's important to let your customers know that if they get a 1099-K, that they do need to report it, regardless of whether they think it's fair or unfair, whatever the case is. If they're disputing that 1099-K, they need to go back to whoever issued it. But if they got it, they're supposed to report it. That's generally how it works with any other 1099 form. And I say that to say this, because if they don't report that 1099-K, what's going to happen is the same thing we see every year with people who don't report W-2s, who don't report 1099 NECs, who don't report 1099-Cs, who don't report 1099-Ks, right? The IRS is going to hold it until they do. We have seen that repeatedly for years. They're going to withhold that refund until they can verify all of the income that has been reported to them is on the tax return. So that's why I say if they got it, they've got to report it. Couple of annual changes here when we're talking about tax brackets. These are slightly adjusted as they normally are. Nothing really groundbreaking here that we need to spend any time talking about. These are just significant or honestly insignificant increases to the tax brackets. The tax rates are all staying the same. It's just the AGI is shifting a little, and it generally does. Same thing with the standard deduction. The standard deduction generally increases every year as we move forward, but it's not generally something that's of significant amounts. We haven't seen that since 2017 with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, where we saw a significant change to standard deduction, right? One thing I did want to point out, because I do like pointing out or sharing with you guys when I learned something new, and I did not know this, and this came up in a discussion with a friend of mine who works for the IRS. So if you see that asterisk right there on married filing separate, over here on the right of the screen, you'll see for married filing separate, if one spouse itemizes, the other is forced to itemize as well, which I think most of us have probably already known. What I didn't know is that if the second spouse doesn't have anything to itemize, then all of their income over $5 is taxable. And that I was unaware of. So I thought I'd share that just sort of as an interesting little nugget, information that I came across this year. So we've got some expired deductions and credits. The recovery rebate credit is expired. I think all of us can say thank goodness for that. No more having to report stimulus payments, recovery rebate credits. Those things are gone. I know that there are still articles and things of that nature floating around in social media and on the internet that are saying that they're talking about doing a fourth stimulus. As far as I know, there is no real legislation pushing for a fourth stimulus. I haven't seen any actual legislation. I've only seen rumors on social media and the internet. The above the line charitable cash contribution. So this was the charitable cash contribution that was capped at $300 for those people who took the standard deduction. So if they were using the standard deduction, they could report an above the line deduction, if you will, for a charitable cash contribution of up to $300. That is gone. That will not be in the tax year 2022. The 60% AGI limit on deductions for cash donations on the Schedule A, that has expired, which means there is now there is no limit. There's no AGI limit on deductions for cash donations. So they're not capped out. They could report their entire AGI as a cash donation if they chose to. And as it feels like every single year, the mortgage insurance premium deduction is also expired. Of the things on this list, it is possible that the above the line charitable contributions and the mortgage insurance premium deduction could be re-enabled by the end of the year. Congress likes to do these things late, right before Christmas for some reason. So we could see those two things change. I can't say with any certainty that they will, though. So be prepared that they won't be there. COVID-19 or disaster-related withdrawals from retirement accounts. So what we're talking about here is the 8915E that they filed in 2020. So for any of those, I know we have some new preparers probably in here. In 2020, taxpayers had the option of making a withdrawal from their retirement account if it was related to COVID in particular, but also other federally declared disaster areas. They were not subject to penalty on those withdrawals, and they could elect to have the tax owed spread out over 3 years. So they would pay the taxes on a third of it in 2020, which they did. They would pay taxes on the second third of it in 2021, and now in 2022 they'll pay the final third. So the 8915F is still in play, and that's where you would report it. It's pretty straightforward. You're just going to take the amount from their 2020 8915E, either line 9 or line 7, depending on the way that form was filled out, what their qualifications were, and you're going to report it onto the 8915F. Pretty straightforward. If you did it last year, it's the exact same process. Nothing has changed with it. So before I jump into the software specifically, I want to go ahead and open it up and see if anybody has any questions that I can answer. You can type it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask your question here in our Zoom.
Good evening. Good morning. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Great. My name is Chandra Donald. I just had a question about the kind of like the system where we can email and message our clients, or actually send them a copy of their tax return. Is there a way that this year possibly maybe we could get a copy of what is emailed to them, or so that we can have a record for ourselves that we actually sent it as proof?
I don't believe so.
Gotcha.
Is sort of the best answer I can give, but that's a great request, and that's something that we can add to our enhancement list.
Okay.
We do for any of you who are new to this software in particular, because I do know we have a pretty large group in here that is new to this software. We do keep a running enhancement list, so as you guys have ideas, if there's things you want to see in the software, please don't hesitate to share that stuff with us in support. We do keep a running enhancement list, and we do meet with them pretty often to discuss those enhancements. And with this developer, if it's something that can be done this year, even if it's in the middle of the year without disrupting anything, they will certainly do it. So I do want to keep that. I do want to make that point out there as well. Does anybody have any questions over the tax law stuff? Software questions I may be able to answer once we get into the software. I just want to kind of break this into two sections. Someone asked if there were any tips about expediting the EFIN request. The answer is generally no. The IRS unfortunately takes as long as they take with those things. There's not really any way to expedite getting an EFIN that I'm aware of. All right, great. So we're going to launch into the software here. There are some things that are unavailable because we are not actually live for 2022. We're in preseason mode. So preseason mode means we cannot mark a return complete. We cannot complete the payment. We cannot go through the bank application. But I do have some ways to show you guys some of those things. The bank application is a little tricky this time of year because you can't do bank products in the 2021 year because they're not filing. And then 2022 hasn't opened up. But I do have a couple of ways that I can show you guys how that looks. So bear with me on that piece. But we're going to dive right into the software here. So when you first log into the software, this is the dashboard. Okay, and the dashboard is sort of a running overview of everything that's going on inside the business. So you have I call it the button bar across the top, um, which keeps a running count. So returns, ready to e-file, checks to print, appointments, ready to pay. Now, the difference between ready to e-file and ready to pay is usually a question that I get, so I want to explain. Ready to e-file means that you have completed the return and you have completed the payment, but you have not transmitted that return. Ready to pay means you have completed the return, but you have not completed the payment. So the way this software works is a little bit different than some of the others. And so I want to kind of explain that process, and then I'll show it to you the best I can. In this software, you complete the return, then you get paid, and then you transmit. And so understanding that those are three separate things will make this a lot easier, I think, for those of you that are new to this software this year. Okay. I want to point out some things up at the top. These are things that we can, that will be beneficial for you to know and be able to have access to throughout the year. Starting with this log into prior year. So you're able to click there, and if you need to get to 21, if you need to do a 2018, whatever the case is, by default, for anybody that's new, we give you the current year and the prior 3. If you need more than that, just reach out to your account manager and they can talk to you about what needs to happen for the archive years. We always give you what you can e-file. So for you guys, it'll be 22, 21, 20, and 19, because those are still e-fileable generally. So if you log into prior year, you'll see it'll actually open in a new window. So I can still operate 2022 and I can bounce back and forth between 21 and 22. Okay. Live chat. This live chat button will connect you with customer support. Right now it's offline because we're in this training, but generally it is open and you guys can chat with us. This is a great feature, especially if you have a customer in front of you and you've forgotten something. I forgot how to email the return, something like that. Save you the time. You don't have to call in. You can connect to us through there. And there's generally no wait in the live chat. Remote support. If we need to connect to you remotely, you can log into the software, hit remote support, and then your support representative will give you a session ID. Okay. Quick account setup. So the quick account setup is basically everything you need to set up the software. Starting with adding preparers, your firm setup, your pricing information, your invoice setup. And so I'm going to show you the preparer setup. For those of you that are new, be sure that you update your PTIN on the admin preparer. We have to create your admin preparer for you, but we don't have your PTIN. So we have to put a placeholder in there. So just be sure that you double check and make sure that your PTIN is correct before you start filing any returns. So to add preparers, you click add new preparer, but I'm going to show you one that already exists. So when you add a new preparer, you're going to create a username and a password for them. You're going to fill out their information here. You're going to make sure that this has a PTIN. Now, if you have data entry people, you can select data entry and then the PTIN field will not be required. Why did that do? Okay. It's been sitting for a while. Be careful using data entry though. And I will tell you this. I got clarification from the IRS when we met with them in July, and essentially someone becomes a preparer the second they put anything on an IRS form. So if they fill out, if you have your data entry people adding dependents, filling out the personal information sheet, uploading documents, those kinds of things, that's fine. If they start entering information on a W-2, they need a PTIN. If they start adding forms to the return or touching the 1040, they need a PTIN. That's the line, at least that's how it was explained to me by the IRS in July. So just wanted to share that with you. As we go down here to the bottom, this is where you get the user options and the user privileges, okay? So the user options are things that they have the ability to do, and the user privileges are things that they have the ability to access. And so those are two different things. This is generally the setup that I use for a preparer. I let them look at a list of all the taxpayers. If you don't want them to, if you want them to only see the returns that they are the preparer of, then you change this from yes to no. I do not give them the ability to delete tax returns. I do not give them the ability to delete firm records. I do give them the ability to modify invoice pricing. So if they need to charge more or add a discount, they can do that from the invoice. Give them the ability to file amended returns and print tax forms. You want to leave this box that says disable view print config pretty much unchecked for everyone. If you enable that, they will not be able to print returns or email returns. So you want to make sure that I generally say leave that unchecked. You probably do want to give them the ability to email tax returns, and then you probably do not want to give them the ability to access, change the prepare and the return, depending again how your office is set up. This is just the general user option settings that I use. So same thing with user privileges. I give them access to clients, schedule, letter, forms, and tools. And that applies to these buttons that are over here on the left. They're a little grayed out, but clients, scheduler, letters, tools, right? Forms. Forms is in a different place. It's under tools. But I don't give them access to bank enrollment, for example. I'm not giving them access to reports or the setup. Those are generally relegated to either office admins or office managers or business owners. That's generally the setup that I use. The firm setup is pretty straightforward. Most of this will be filled out for you because we've set up your account, but if it isn't and you need to adjust it, just make the changes that you need to make here. Pricing setup, mine is set price manually after every return. I do that for a particular reason. When I do tax returns, I sometimes charge an annoyance fee. If that customer is being particularly difficult, they're probably going to pay more than someone who isn't. That's just generally how I work. However, you can set this, you can do it price per form if you want to do it that way. You have main forms, you have schedules, others, or you can just do show all. And as you scroll down here, you'll see all of the possible forms and worksheets are here. So you do have those options to charge per form. You could do a fixed flat rate per form as well. Again, I set mine to price manually. It's all a matter of what you choose and what you want to do. Same thing with states. You can do a fixed rate for all states. You can set a price per state. Maybe you want to charge more for California because it's more difficult than Illinois. You can set that way. You can also set the price manually after every state, or you can set the price for all forms in each state. I don't recommend doing this because this will take you a very long time to do. For example, if you had to go in and do New Hampshire and fill out all those forms and then do Nebraska, like there's a lot of work that would probably go into that. My advice to you would probably be set price for each state or set a fixed flat rate. But again, entirely up to you. If you have predefined discounts like I have here set up as I set up an employee discount, you can create those here and they'll save. And then when you modify the invoice, you can actually adjust those. Same thing with additional charges. If you have things that you generally charge a certain flat rate for prior year return, whatever the case is, you can add those and then you can select them when you create the invoice. And then the invoice setup. This is really easy, guys. In the invoice setup, put the first 4 letters of your company name, put 2023 in the invoice starting sequence number, and then the office location, put the city that you're located in. The only thing I specifically point out is this right here, where it says check here to show detailed fee disclosure on bank products. You're not required to do that. I just recommend it to everyone so that when you get the bank app, you have a breakdown of the fees and who it's going to, so that your client has a full understanding of what those fees are. Makes it a little bit easier, but again, entirely up to you and the way that you want to do it. Okay. Last button up here is tutorials. This is something we actually added this year. So tutorials, for example, if we want to show how to add preparers, this video tutorial will open over in YouTube and will show you how to add preparers. We'll be updating these probably throughout the year as we continue to make more and more of these, but they are there now. So that's one place that you have to get some additional training. You can also go to our YouTube channel, which is exactly where this webinar is going to be uploaded once we have finished and we record it. We are recording it now. Once we finish and actually upload it, my apologies. You can also go to SimpleTAX University. There is an e-learning course that we created this year that will walk you step by step through basically everything that a preparer would need to know. Some of the office setup stuff is not in there, but the actual tax return preparation pieces, how to send remote signatures, those kinds of things are active already. So now we're going to go back to individual. So if we click returns, we can get to a listing of our returns. We can get there the same way just by clicking clients. So I'm going to show you an existing return and then we'll create a new one. But I want to show you some of the things that are in the client manager before we actually create our own return. So you just double click to access the return. And then this is what we call the client manager. And the client manager has a lot of buttons across the top, starting with my tax office, with text messaging, DM docs, signature, edit. So this is where you actually would go back and modify an existing return that has not been filed. So we can go here, we can go edit, and that actually would take us into the return. And we have two input modes, either direct input or interview. Okay. View print is where you print from. Pretty straightforward. You can select what you want here. If you want to email a customer copy, you click customer copy and click email customer copy. It pops the window. I don't have an email address on this return, so it's asking me to enter, but you can actually send it to any email address that you want to send it to. Okay, when you send it, it is encrypted, which is an IRS regulation. So it has a password on it, and the instructions for the password or how the password is generated are included in that email, along with some examples of what those are. And I'll show that to you guys real quick. Give me one sec. We're going to go ahead and send us an email over to, yeah, we'll just send it to support. And you see it says mail sent successfully. And I'm going to open my mailbox over here. And so you see that's what that email looks like. And so it tells you, hey, here's a copy. And then it gives them the instructions for opening the attached PDF, right? And the instructions are actually pretty pretty straightforward in that it's the first four letters of the primary first name, all lowercase. If it's less than 4 letters, then you only use the 4 letters, or you use the available letters rather. It's 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 4-digit date of birth, and then the last 4 of their social. So for example, and it gives them examples here. It says if the taxpayer's name is John Doe, the date of birth is 4/9/1983, and the social is 400/00/1001, then the password would be John 040919831001. So the information is there, and this is my advice to you. If you know how the password is generated and they have opted in for text messaging, then you can actually just text it to them. So for example, I can look at this and know that it's going to be test 010119866789. So I can send them a text that says, your password is test 010119866789. And you can send that to them ahead of time before they call and go, what's the password? So that will help you guys, I think, in that process of being able to, get them to take that via email. Someone asked, can the emails be sent in any other languages? You can modify the emails, I believe, but there isn't a language selection. So if you modified it, it would be the same for everyone. It wouldn't be separate. But that is a great request. We can add that to our enhancement request as well. Let me write that one down because I don't want to open up my enhancements right now. Let me add that to the list from what I got from Chandra.
Thank you.
And multi-languages. You guys are throwing gems today. So that's where that is. So the view input, for those of you who have been using this software prior to last year, this will be a sizable shift for you that you may have noticed in last year's software. This was a big project for us to work with our engineers to get this view input to a much better place than it has been historically. The view input will actually give you a read-only version of the return as it was created and as it was entered with all of the forms that are attached to it. So you can actually go in and say, okay, on that dependent info, did I put in that they were a full-time student? I didn't. And you can make those adjustments. And so this is significantly greater than it was. And it is one of those things that came from you guys as an enhancement request. In particular, those people who moved from our desktop software to our online software, you guys had requested this quite often. So we did get that actually implemented in, I want to say it was like June or July of last year that we got that finished. So wanted to add that point to you. So now we're going to talk about signatures and the different ways your customers can sign the actual tax return. So we do support signature pads. We also support, so we support the mouse. We support signature pads. We support Topaz and Scriptel signature pads. If you're wanting to use one of the signature pads, my advice to you would be to contact support. Let us help you get the correct drivers installed so that it will work and confirm that it works instead of you guys being out on an island by yourself with it. One of the other ways that they can sign is via remote signature. And to do remote signature, all you have to do is come here, click My Tax Office, and you'll see we have two options here. One is remote signature only, and the other is client portal. We're going to focus on remote signature only at the moment, and then I will show you guys what the client portal, how that actually works. So if we go over here into the remote signature, so we select remote signature only, we hit continue, and then you're going to enter a phone number or an email address. And in this case, I'm going to send it via email so that you guys can see what this actually looks like. Now, the process for email remote signature and SMS or text message remote signature is identical. The process is no different. What we see on this screen is exactly what they would see on their phone. So if we go back, you can see that it was sent. The link time is something else that got changed this year. Again, I want to say it was closer towards the end of the year. The links used to expire after 30 minutes. Now they expire after 24 hours. So we have substantially increased that link time.
Can I ask a question, or would you like for us to wait till you go to the presentation?
No, if you've got a question about anything, go ahead and ask.
On the signature that you're doing right now, since you're doing it through email, when it goes, say it's a married couple signing, does it need to go to separate emails, or can they both go to the same email?
Currently, we only support sending to a single contact point. So we are sending it to the taxpayer. So when they go to actually, and I'll show you what I mean. When they go here, which is, so let me back up a second. Let me close this. So here's what the email looks like that they get. They will get this email, and if they get a text message, they'll get a text message that basically says the same thing. So then they click here to access, and it will take them to this page. Okay, and they're going to use their first name, last name, social, and their date of birth. This information will be for the taxpayer. Currently, we are only supporting the taxpayer. For the signature, you both will sign on a married filing joint, but the verification stuff is all with the taxpayer. We're not set up to send separate signatures like we were in the desktop, but it is something that is already in our enhancement request and we are working on. So I'm
Thank you.
hoping that answered your question.
Yes, yes, it did. Thank
Okay,
you.
perfect. So when we log in here now, right, we're going to log in. We'll get birth. I think it was, what did I do, 1986? I think that's right. They'll validate user, and then it will take them to a screen that looks like this. And what it's doing now is it's generating the return. Not even sure they can sign. They can't because this return is not marked complete. Oh, I can mark returns complete. Nice. Let me see if I reload this. We're in 2022, so I don't know if I can mark returns complete yet. I can mark it complete there, but I don't think I can mark it reviewed because we're not at that point. Let's see if it'll let me. Hey, look at that. I tricked it. So here they'll get this, right? It'll load. It'll say, I've reviewed my return. Now they can click on any of these links and view the forms. They click Schedule C. It'll show them the Schedule C, right? And then they can click Done. And then it's going to ask them, do you want to electronically sign your tax return? They're going to say yes. They'll hit continue. And this one, I already have the signature, but they can go in here and sign, right? And when they hit save signature, watch. That's how fast it is. So that signature pops right back in. Immediately, there's no transmitting, there's no waiting, there's no delay. If they say, oh, okay, I signed, and you don't see the signature, they didn't sign. It's that simple. There's no way around that. So we hit mark completed, and that tells them, hey, I signed, everything is good. You can move forward with that return. And so now if we go look, so then they just hit close and it logs them out, right? If we go look at my tax office, you'll see now it says signature upload, client review. So it's ready to send to the IRS whenever you are. We can't mark this actually ready to send to the IRS because we're not active, but you guys know where that goes, right? So this is the way I do it. If someone does a remote signature, that signature is here. I've already selected all the forms. I go view print. I do prepare a copy, signature forms only, and then I do export to document manager. And that's going to segue us over here to talking about DM docs. Oh, that's terrible. I want that up there. So DM docs is your document manager. So you have the ability to upload documents, scan documents. Now your clients can upload documents through the mobile app or through the client portal, and I'll touch on those in just a minute. So if you want to view anything, you can. I always do it this way. I just merge everything and print it as PDF. But as we go through, we're going to go down here. You will see that this is a signed return. Their signature is saved, and so your signed copy of the return is now saved in DM docs. You have a full copy of the return. At any point, you can access it. If you check this box, it will allow them to be viewed in the taxpayer portal. So the client portal, it will show them that document. I'm going to show you guys the client portal next. I cannot do it from this one, so let me go back and find one. I think I've got to look at prior year. Oh, who did I do this with? Was it this one? Cool. So for them, and we'll go back to 22 real quick, and I'm going to show you how you send to the client portal. Oh, that one already has it. They must have already, let's see. Oh, this one that I pulled forward, they already have the client portal. I think I can do it from this one. When we go to my tax office, you'll get the ability for, like you guys saw earlier, right? We had client portal, we had remote signature. The process is exactly the same. Once they have signed remotely, though, you can send them a remote signature link again the following year, or you can upgrade to full access, which will give them access to the client portal. And this is what it looks like. You send them an email for it. And so we'll do this one. And so now if we go back to this return, November return, okay. So you here, I just got another email. So here's the client portal. Very different, or not very different, right, than the email that they got for remote signatures. So the process is the same. They'll click to access, and here's where we get a little bit different. November return. So they'll do the same verification that they do with remote signature. $1,188. So we do 1,1. You're going to validate. Now they must create an account. And they're going to create a password. And so we'll go to login, and they'll actually log in here at mytaxoffice.com is where they can log in. And then it will ask them to do two-factor authentication. Very similar to the way that you guys did this. And again, this is one of those things that is a an IRS requirement for security. And so they'll get, if they choose email, if they choose text, they'll get a text. If they choose email, they'll get an email that looks just like this. They can just copy that code. And they can hit verify. Now they're in the document or they're in the client portal. Now the client portal will move forward with them every year. So if we had one where so anybody that you send the client portal to this year, they will have this year. And if you pull them forward next year and give them access, they'll continue forward from 2022 forward. It does not go backwards. Same thing with remote signature. At least currently remote signature and the client portal are not available in tax year 21 anymore. Someone asked, would it show SimpleTAX or my business name on the verification? On the verification, it will show your name. As far as I know, it should be pulling that information. It should not be pulling SimpleTAX. Same thing up here in this top left. This would have your name or your logo if you've uploaded that in the setup. There's a section in the setup. So if you have questions about that, I can show you that as well. And actually, I'll show you that real quick. Under setup, and it's under settings. Down here at the bottom, you can actually upload your own logo for the client portal.
I have a question about the email link that we send for an invitation. Is there any way possible that it could be the option, just like it was for the signature, for us to send it as text message or email, or does it have to be email only?
Client portal has to be email only.
Okay.
Yeah, because they need to do it on a computer. It's not as feasible for them to do it. Yeah, on a on a.
Trust me, I've tried.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So on this left-hand side, right inside here, we have that view print, which we saw earlier, right, where they can view the return. And that's what it's doing now, is it's generating what's in this return, which in this return is nothing. Document managers, where they can view any of the documents that you've uploaded and given them access to via DM docs inside the return. I'm going to jump back to this return. So if I were to upload a document, for example, or scan a document. Oh, yeah, there's a camera back here somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So if I was to just capture that, and you can use any webcam, there's actually one, there is a camera in particular, a document scanner that we do support, but any webcam will work. Generally, any webcam will work. So you can say, yes, I want them to be able to see it in the portal, or no, I don't. And then you just upload the scan, right? And that's how you scan docs. If you want to upload documents, you just click upload doc. You can, again, you can decide whether they can see it in the portal or not. And then you choose a file name. I don't know. Here we go. We'll send them my beautiful boy. So as we look, now we got my boy. And these are available in the portal. If you decide at any point you don't want them to have access to it, you can just remove it and click update. And so now if we go back to this person's clients and we go back to document manager, you'll see there's that document that we uploaded, and they can view my beautiful boy. He's a good boy. So those options are there now, right, for you to actually share documents with your customers. If they want to upload a document, they can upload a document by clicking that plus sign, put in a document description, and the same way you upload a document, we'll throw Darth Vader up here this time, and they can actually upload the document. Oh, the file name is too big. Oops. And see, you can see that it was uploaded by the preparer or uploaded by the taxpayer. Someone asked if they can connect an Epson scanner to the software, and the answer is no. And the reason for that is because your computer will view that as a scanner, not as a web camera. If your scanner will view inside your computer as a camera, then it will work just fine. But there isn't any web drivers for those things to be able to scan directly to the internet, which is essentially what you would have to be doing, which is why we built this using a webcam as an option. If you have questions about what scanner would work best for you, you can reach out to your account manager or call support. We can give you the specifics on the document scanner that we recommend. I'll say it that way. So you can see that that's uploaded now. So if we go look at DM docs, now we see that that's the file that they uploaded, and it's here. And we don't get the option to select, which if they upload the document, you can't take it away from them, for example. Okay, so let me go back because we're getting a couple of questions about scanners. Scanners are installed to the computer, and they do not have drivers to scan to the internet. So if you're using a local scanner, you can use it to scan those documents, but you will have to upload in DM docs. You will not be able to scan document. Scan document is working off of a webcam driver, and there is a particular document, a document camera that we use. So if you want to scan using something other than a webcam, if you want to use an actual document scanner or a document camera, then we can direct you to the right place. Chandra, on the file sizes, the short answer is no. We can only increase it sometimes. There's a finite amount of space, and if we increase it to 5 megs, then it's going to be, well, it needs to be 10, and so that's sort of where we settled. I will show you guys a tool real quick that you can use if you're using one of those local scanners, to where you can actually compress those files, in particular PDFs. I'm going to show you where this is. If you just search Adobe compress PDF. The very first one, it's called PDF Compressor. You can actually select Adobe PDFs. I don't know that I even have any in here, if I'm being honest. I really don't. I reset this computer the other day. Let's see, maybe. Oh, here, I know what I can do. So you can actually upload. See, this is a 4 meg about file. You can see it's right here. The limitation is 2. So if we select highest and we hit compress, we can let Adobe do the compression for us. And then we should be able to upload that file because it'll be significantly smaller. See, now it's 1 meg. It went from 4 down to 1. And so now it's saved as compressed, and I will easily be able to upload this file into DM Docs now. Downloads. Oh, file name's too long. That does happen. We have to shorten these. Yeah, that's fine. We'll just name it test. Open and then upload doc. And now that full PDF that I uploaded is there, which was just the presentation today. So a couple of questions here in the chat. One says, is this for sharing docs only? Means I cannot save their full tax paperwork? No, you absolutely can save your full tax paperwork, and that's exactly what this is for. You just have the ability to share documents through the client portal with the customers if you choose to. It's just whether or not you want them to have access to that document or not. If they upload the document to you, then obviously they maintain control over that. You can't remove it from them. In terms of uploading PDFs, as someone asked, can I upload PDF files? Yes, that was what I just showed. And if you're getting a message that says the file size is too large, then you can use this this tool from Adobe to compress that file. If you guys want to share that link with your clients so that they can compress files before they upload through the client portal, absolutely, feel free. You can, like I said, you just search Adobe compress PDF, and it's usually the first link that pops up.
Is that a free file? Sometimes they charge. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not logged in. You can see the sign in up here in the right.
Right.
I am not logged in. This is a free tool from Adobe.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, no problem. So let's move forward. Okay. So I showed you guys what's here. Like I said, they can sign via the client portal as well. There is also a mobile app called My Tax Office that they can use. Now, the difference between the client portal and the mobile app is who starts the return. So if you start the return on your side, then you're going to send them the client portal, right? If you filled out the personal information sheet. Generally, I recommend client portal for any existing client because you just want to pull their information forward. But let's say you need new docs. Fine, send them the client portal, have them upload the docs, right? Mobile app is great for new clients because they can download the mobile app and then you give them your code. They put your code in and then they fill out their return and they submit all of that through. There is a full video on our YouTube channel because I don't have a way to kind of show you that right here. Let me go look at my channel. There's an entire section on remote signature in here as well. But there is a process, and you guys can even share that video with your customers because this is their process. I believe this is the right one. Yes, this is how they enroll in the app. I was able to create this video, and this actually goes all the way back. So it tells you what you need to do on your side, but then it actually shows you how they can create their account. They can fill out all that information. They're going to put your passcode in. And then as we jump ahead a little bit, so you see they have all of these things active, and where is it? So when you log into the software, it pops up and says, hey, you have a new app, you have a new return. and you can click view returns, and then you can actually view their documents that they uploaded. If you go in, you can see everything that they filled out, their filing status, all of their personal information is in there. So it's something you guys can use. I recommend that you go watch this video on our YouTube channel. It's the My Tax Office mobile app video. It will help you if you're going to use the mobile app, or if you have an intention to use the mobile app. I wish I could show you here, but there's just no way for me to share my phone from through Zoom like that. But that video will definitely help you when it comes to that. I showed you guys text message earlier, so that's pretty straightforward. The only thing on the text message that I do want to show you is when you're in the return itself, in particular in direct input, you want to make sure that this phone number or this phone number says sell, and that you check the box that they opt in. They need to opt in to actually receiving text messages from your office. If you don't, no, the mobile, someone asked, is the mobile app included or we have to pay extra? No, the mobile app is available to all clients as part of your software purchase. So as long as you are, as long as you've paid SimpleTAX, it's there. The mobile app is called My Tax Office, and we try to stay consistent with that. My Tax Office is the name of the client portal. They go to mytaxoffice.com to access that. They use the mobile app, which is My Tax Office. If they get text, if you send a text message, when the text message comes in, it'll say My Tax Office and then whatever your message is. So we stay consistent with that so that your clients can learn that if they're getting something from My Tax Office, they know it's you. And so it's consistent across the board. Now, one other thing that I will add, if your client has a client portal login, they actually can use the mobile app and vice versa. They can use the same login credentials for either the mobile app or the client portal if they have already set up the client portal. So that's one of those great things. As long as they have an account set up, whether they set it up, my apologies, whether they set it up through My Tax Office or they set it through the mobile app or through the client portal, that login is interchangeable. They can log into the mobile app using their client portal login. They can log into the client portal using the same login they use for the mobile app. So there wouldn't be two different logins for these customers. It's all one login that gives them access to both, if that makes sense. Okay. One other thing that is new that you guys may have seen is this practice return. And this was an absolute request from SimpleTAX customers. You guys wanted to have the ability, like you did in the desktop software, to, for lack of a better phrase, to play around with the return without it messing up anything or saving or overwriting what you've already done. So we created this practice return function. And so we actually can click practice return and then click create practice return. And now it's actually cloning that tax return in an environment where you can just kind of play with it. So if I go, well, you know what what happens if he files single? And I it helps if I answer all the questions. What happens if he files single, and what did I not answer? Okay. It is not liking that. I don't know. So you can adjust that, and you can say, well, what happens if he files single and I take the dependent off? Well, if you're doing that in the live return, if you have to do that, you know what I mean? Then you have to take the dependent off to see what the status would be if they filed single with no dependent. This way gives you a chance to look at that or test that scenario, right, without actually modifying the original return. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of how that practice return functions work. So we're going to go back, and actually we're just going to look at this return that already exists. I'm going to show you how to create a new return, just so that you know how to create a new return. I just don't want to waste your time watching me fill out the personal information sheet. That seems like we could do better things with our time. So to create a new return, it's really easy. You go clients, You go new return, and then you type in that social, whatever that social happens to be. I don't know if I pulled this forward or not. I probably did. Let's see. Yep, we're going to use this one, 5656. So if you want to pull a return from a prior year, and those of you that got conversions, you can do that. If you have not gotten your conversion yet, please call support so that they can get you on the schedule for a conversion. You want to make sure that you get those returns converted from your prior software before the start of the year. Same thing with your bank enrollment. If you guys have not completed your bank enrollment, you're going to want to do that quickly. The last thing you want to do is get caught up not being able to offer bank products. There's a couple of questions in the chat, but I'm going to finish this and then I will come back and answer those questions. I do promise you guys that. In the import function, which is essentially pro forma or carry forward, as we're used to calling it maybe in the software that you were using prior, we have a couple of options. We have a simple import, a comprehensive, and a custom import. Here's my advice. Use the simple import. The simple import will pull all of the pertinent information that you need, but will not pull any of the amounts on those forms. So for example, on a W-2, if you had 15,000 in income and 2,500 in withholding, simple import will just pull the W-2, but box 1 and box 2 will be blank. That's probably the best way and really the way that you want it. If you do a comprehensive import, it's going to pull the W-2 and box 1's going to be filled out and box 2 is going to be filled out. That seems a little dangerous to me. There could be a scenario in which you do need to do that. And if that's the case, then, by all means do it. I generally just say, let's go with simple import. So I want to show you what a new return looks like. So when you do a new return, now on this screen, I want to point something out, and that is, unless your taxpayer lives in Puerto Rico, do not use the 1040 SS. That's pretty much it. I know it says U.S. self-employed tax return because that's literally what it says across the top of the form, but it only applies to bona fide residents of Puerto Rico. So I don't want anybody confused. Generally, you're just going to stick with the 1040 unless you have some real reason not to, right? And we're going to do save and continue. And then it takes you into this, and this is the direct input mode. I'm going to show you guys the non-direct input mode, if you will, the interview mode, so that you guys get an idea as to what that looks like. So when you start a new return in interview mode, the very first page that comes up is basically the personal information sheet. And so then you're going to fill all that stuff out. I don't want to fill all that out, so I'm just going to show you what one looks like. So interview mode is a very sort of straightforward kind of thing. It jumps right in. It will walk you through, if you will. I know this is a dirty word in our industry, but very TurboTax friendly. It's very much designed that way, and you just do save and continue. It's a lot of save and continue as you go through it. And so for your newer or less experienced preparers, this may not be a bad option for them because it will, the gray question marks will always give them additional information that they can use. They can use useful information, which will adjust as we go through, right? But it's very much save and continue all the way through. I would say for your more experienced preparers, using interview mode is probably going to be more frustrating for them than using the direct input, which is what I use. So I'm going to go back in and go to direct input. So let me address these couple of questions. Someone asked, could you guys guide me through the first filing using the practice tab? The practice return mode is only, it's not an actual return that you can test. It's not a dummy return. It's a clone of the existing return so that you can test tax scenarios. In terms of going through your first return, yeah, but I recommend that you maybe go through a prior year return now, and start doing some returns now so that you don't get to January and find that, oh, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know how to do that. If we don't cover it in training and it's not covered in the e-learning course, for example, yeah, feel free to contact support. That's what they're there for. We currently do not have a tax planning platform in the software. I do know that is in the pipeline. I just couldn't give you a definitive date as to when that might be available, but I wouldn't expect it soon. Yes, you can do a K1 import from the business to the individual return. I personally did that on my own return. So yes, that is functionally possible. And actually, you don't even have to do anything. If you do the corporate return first and then you do the 1040, it will say there's a K1 available. Do you want to import it? And you say yes, and it pulls it right in. So yeah, those two things are connected for those of you that do have corporate returns. Now, moving forward, the personal information sheet. Look, guys, personal information sheet's like every other personal information sheet. It's just like your client intake form. It's no different. So as we scroll down to the bottom here, which is the part I really want to focus on, is this section here where it says bank information for direct deposit. So the way the software works is if your customer wants a check from the IRS, then you leave this section blank. They want a direct deposit from the IRS, fill this section out. If they're doing a bank product, then they want a check, you can obviously leave this blank. If they want a direct deposit of any kind, fill this out. The reason for that is because when you do the bank product, you can pull the information from here as a direct deposit. But if you enter it as a direct deposit here, and when you go to the bank application, you select check and hit save, you'll get a message up at the top that says, hey, this doesn't match what's in the return. There's direct deposit information in the return. So it kind of tells you, hey, are you sure they want to check? So we give you sort of that extra step. Yes, the franchise tax return for Texas is supported in the software. So we're going to save and move through. So like I said, this is all pretty straightforward stuff on here. Oh, I didn't put a second phone number. Let's do that. Doesn't matter. So I work from the left down is sort of the way I operate, right? So we do the personal information sheet first because that's required. Then we get into the additional information. And the additional information is where we get into identity theft prevention and identity verification. But this is where you're going to put in their driver's license information or their ID information. If they have it, you just say yes. Select what it is, where it's from. This information does carry over to the bank application. So you've got their ID information. Now we're going to ask you some identity verification questions. And this is vital, I say, to keeping you compliant with the IRS when it comes to verifying identities. You're supposed to verify the identity of every taxpayer before you file their return. That's just the law, right? So we give you two options. We give you the option for in-person. So if you verified they came in, you looked at their ID, everything is good, then you say yes, you check the boxes that apply, right? If they came in for, or if you're doing it remotely, meaning you're not seeing them face to face, then you want to make sure that you do meet the identity requirements, which at that point becomes two forms of ID, a government ID, a picture ID, and then a financial utility account number. Am I naive enough to believe that everyone is going to do this? No. I just have to tell you that's what the law says. How you guys handle it is entirely up to you. In this case, I'm just going to say no on that. We're going to do it there. This schedule LEP question, honestly, I would just answer no unless you have a client base that is largely not speaking English or Spanish. I do have one customer here in Houston that has a very large Vietnamese customer base, and so I tell her to answer yes. But generally, for most of you guys, you're just going to answer that question no and move on. Okay. So now that we've got the ID information in, we're going to go to dependents. And in this case, I'm actually going to change this status to head of household because I want to show you guys what happens. When I hit save on this after changing it to head of household, it's going to tell me that claiming filing status head of household requires you to enter dependent details. So when we hit OK, it takes us straight to the dependent. And so then we just do add new. And as you move through, oops. And we default a lot of these questions for you. We assume that if you are putting a dependent on the return, that you want to claim them as a dependent, that they are eligible for child tax credit based on their age and their social, that they are a U.S. citizen based on their social, that they qualify for EIC because they meet the qualifications, right? But in particular, this section, did this dependent live with you last year? We assume that the answer is yes, and that it is 12 months that they live with you. We put that in for you by default. So if that's not the case, then you can make the adjustments, right? So we go down. This is what I want to point out. One dependent or one person really must be a head of household qualifier. We do not check this by default because we do not know which person is going to be the head of household qualifier. I know some other softwares do, and that has gotten some people in trouble. So we don't, right? So you want to make sure that you check this box. Generally, if it's children, then you're fine, right? You just enter your dependent or enter that child and then select that first person as the qualified head of household. You only have to select one person. So you only have to check that box on the very first dependent you put in. If they have dependent care expenses, you can enter them right here, and then it will prompt you to complete the 2441. These are the EIC questions that we are so used to seeing. Do they have a social? Did they live with you? Yada, yada, yada. And then the marketplace question at the bottom. So once we finish that, we hit save, we're done. Okay. So the only thing we're really missing in this return at this point is income, right? We have all the pertinent information. Now we need to add income. So we're going to start with a W-2. So to find forms, you can either use the form search or you can scroll through and find which form you're looking for. These are generally in numerical order. I find it faster to just go W-2, and then that gives me all the W-2 forms. So do W-2, and then we just click add new, and then we're going to enter the employer identification number. There is an EIN database. It is a dynamic database, which means it will add, as you add employers in, your database will continually update. For those of you that are switching from the SimpleTAX desktop product to the SimpleTAX, to our Keep It Simple product, your EIN database is part of the conversion. So we will be able to pull most of that information. If you were using a different software, unfortunately, we probably can't. We just have to look and see. But in most cases, we wouldn't be able to pull the EIN database, except from those people that are coming from the SimpleTAX 1040 desktop product. Okay. So now we're just going to plug in some numbers here. And I'm going to show you something on the states. We're going to add a state here. We're going to do Colorado. Let's do Delaware. Delaware's got a really easy state. So they worked in Delaware for a minute, right? So when we save this, what happens is up here at the top, we get a Delaware non-resident return. So if we click Delaware and we hit revisit, you'll see it's already marked as non-resident. Well, how do they know they're non-resident? Because right here, we have the resident state listed as Texas because it pulled it from here. So we know that the resident state is Texas in most cases. And that's why I pointed this out. If someone moved to your state in January and they're getting their taxes done with you, then you're going to want to list that resident state as whatever their previous state was if they're changing states. But otherwise, it's going to complete it as a non-resident return. If they are a part year resident, then you can just come in, mark part year, select. No more having to search to find out what form you're supposed to use, what schedule you're supposed to use, all of that other stuff that we have dealt with in other softwares, but in particular that 1040 desktop software. So states are very, very simple in this process. So we've got our W-2, right? So now you see our refund has now shot up because we have incomes, which means we qualify for earned income, child tax credit, all of those things, right? Well, this person's got a 1099 NEC, so we need to report that to a Schedule C because they do a little DoorDash on the side, if you will, right? So the rule on these things is Schedule C. You want to add your schedule first. And we even tell you, if we go to the 1099 NEC, we tell you, you must create the Schedule C, E, or F, or Form 4835 prior to entering that 1099 NEC. You want to enter the schedule first because you need to have a place to report the 1099 to. So we're going to go add our Schedule C. So we just type in schedule and we get Schedule C, and we're going to do add new. Business codes, we have our awesome little pick from list. I'm going to pick one randomly, but you can do things like this. So you just select and get your business code, and you come down, and right here is where I go. I start that Schedule C, and I know I need to add a 1099 NEC. So we go 1099 NEC. We go add new, put that TIN in, pulls from the EIN database, and then we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of non-employee compensation. Now, in that non-employee compensation, what we'll see is in this reporting section is where you're going to decide where this is going to be reported to. Now, you can choose it here. If you're not reporting it to a Schedule C, for example, if you're reporting it to the 1040, you can do it that way. My advice to you is just do pick from list, select that Schedule C, and then hit use. Then we hit save. So now we need to get back to that Schedule C. The easiest way to do that is to go to Filed Forms and then go Schedule C. Filed Forms shows you everything that is currently attached to the return. So if you don't see that form here, then it is not currently attached to the return, right? So now we're going to come over here. We're going to go back to that Schedule C, and we need to go ahead and put some expenses in here. He did a little bit of work. So we've got these fields here are manual entry. If you see these, the strike through icon, if you will, then that means those are fillable fields. We also have our work pads. So you can actually click on our clipboard and start itemizing out those expenses, right? So I did postcards, cost me 55 bucks. I did flyers, cost me 25 bucks. I did pens or radio ad, cost me 700 bucks, right? So you see it's totaling all that up. So if we hit save now, you come down and you see that field is in blue. That's an indicator to you that you have a work pad. So you can click that work pad and actually see what that breakdown was. These things are great for keeping lists, in particular on that Schedule C, because I know people do not bring you totals with receipts. They just bring you receipts. So this is an easy way for you to just kind of plug that stuff in and keep moving, right? I'm going to show you two other things on the Schedule C, and then we're going to move forward. And those are the two most important things I think that we run into often on the Schedule C. Starting with mileage. We don't have a limitation on the number of vehicles here for mileage. So you can just come down and you click add new, select the date the vehicle is placed in service. I want to point out this placed in service date because this date placed in service date is not 1/1 of January, 1/1 of the tax year. It is the day that they started using this vehicle, or in the case of depreciation, they started using that asset for business. So if they started using that laptop in 2019, that's the date you placed in service, not 1/1 of January 1st. And when I get into depreciation, I'll talk specifically about why that's so valuable, why that's so important. Now, one of the things that you guys may not know for this year is that we had another one of those years, and we haven't had one in a few years, of the half year mileage rate. So the first half of the year was one rate, and the second half of the year was a different rate. If I remember right, it was like 59 and 63, if I remember correctly. Someone can probably correct me on that. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but so you are in the mileage, you're going to have an extra line this year, which is business miles driven before June 1st. So we're going to put 1,500 in here, and then we're going to put 2,000 rather in the miles after, right? So that gives you the standard mileage rate. You see it down here at the bottom. You're going to answer those questions as best you can with all the information that's available. And that gives you a good idea of what that standard mileage total is. If they want to do actual expenses, no problem. You come up here, you do actual expenses, you type in those actual expenses. We have the work pad as well. So you can do it either way from the same place. So we're going to hit save because most people take the mileage because the mileage is usually higher than the expenses in a lot of cases. So now we've got our advertising, we've got our car and truck expenses. We've got a laptop that we want to depreciate though. So we're going to go 4562. We're going to click add new, and then we get right here at the property information. And this is where we just click add new. If you have multiple Schedule Cs, I would advise you to click pick list so that you can determine what assets need to go to what Schedule C. In this case, we only have one, so it picks it up by default and it tells us right here what it is. So we're going to click add new. We're going to put laptop computer. And this is why these dates placed in service are so important. And I'm going to show you what I mean. So if we do 1/1 of 2022 and we put the cost basis as $3,500, 100% business use, right? Well, we don't know what I don't know. Some of you guys may know or be able to spout these off the top of your head. I certainly can't. I don't know what the classification, the method, and convention is for a laptop off the top of my head, right? But I can find out by clicking help me. If I click help me, and I'm like, oh, I don't see computers, so maybe information systems. And so if I click that gray question mark, it will tell me what qualifies. And so when we're looking here, computers qualify under information systems. So that's what I want. And now you'll see that the property type, the classification, the method, and convention are all completed. So now we can come down and look at save at the bottom here. So the depreciation amount is showing $700 if it was in 2022. What if this was 2018? Would it still be $700? No, it's $400. And if I go back and this is let's say we first put it in business in 2016, it's going to be $0 because the depreciation has expired. And that's the reason that is important. You can only depreciate an asset for a certain length of time, and that's this classification. We are only going to be able to depreciate this laptop for 5 years. After 5 years, there's no more depreciation left. We've already depreciated. If you're putting 1/1 of the tax year every year, you'll never run out of depreciation. So you could depreciate that laptop for 15 years, which is fine until the IRS shows up and wants an audit. Depreciating vehicles generally falls into that same category. I know someone had asked that. You want to make sure. That's why I always say the date placed in service is the date placed in service. It's not 1/1 of the calendar year unless they first started using it in 2022 on January 1st. That's one of those things when you're looking. I know some people have asked me in the past, what are indicators to an IRS investigator that this might not be on the up and up? That's one of them. If you've got all your returns and every asset was January 1st, 2022, that's going to throw a red flag to an investigator. If they've already launched the investigation, that doesn't mean that it's going to start the investigation, right? But it could throw a red flag to them about, ooh, maybe they're not doing this the correct way. Someone asked if our support is open 24 hours. Our support is not open 24 hours. We do expand support when we get into the tax season, and we'll let you know what those support hours are expanding to. I don't have them right in front of me at the moment. But January 2nd, we'll go to, or either January 2nd or January 3rd, whatever day it is that we're open. The hours will expand. So don't worry about that. So we've got our Schedule C. We did all our expenses. If we go back and look at our Schedule C now, you can see we're taking $1,100 loss. And you see that depreciation is pushed back and calculated there. So if we go now, so we've done everything we need to do. There's nothing left for us to do, right? Well, let's verify and make sure that we got everything. So we're going to hit verify, and we're going to see that we've got a couple of things that we need to do, starting with the QBI. So we're going to hit click here to fix. It'll take us over to the QBI. Now, the QBI is the most simple thing you can do in this software. It's just knowing the process, right? So all you do is you go add new, pick from list, use, and save. That's pretty much it for most things. The only exception to that is you may need to check that box if it's a specified trade or business. But generally, that's how it works. And so then we save. Now we're not going to get a QBI on this because we took a loss. So we have no taxable income as it is. But so we hit verify again, and let's see what else we're missing. Okay, so we're missing the 8867 due diligence. So we're going to click here to fix, click add new, and we're going to start answering these questions. And before somebody asks, no. Oh, I need to answer now. No, we cannot autofill these. You cannot save these. That's just not, that's not feasible. On question 5 in particular, this is about record retention and document retention. We're giving you a way to make this life easier if you ever get audited for these things. So we give you some examples of documents that you can rely on, right? Residency, these are the things that you can rely on. Schedule C, disability, whatever the case is, right? We also give you the attached explanation, and this is a required field. And this is where you can list out those documents that you use. Or you can type in additional information if you didn't use documents, and you can enter why you didn't use documents, right? So you can hit save in here. And that's what I've always done. So once we save, now we're back to just answering the questions. I promise you of one thing. You do not want to answer these questions the way I am, because I'm not reading them. I don't know what they say. I don't need to. I'm not actually filing this return. You do want to make sure that you read these questions and make sure you answer them appropriately. So don't follow me. Now we get down into the bottom of this section. Now that bottom section will not be e-filed, okay? But it is valuable, and I'm going to show you exactly why it's valuable. So in this particular case, let's say we've got a single dad. He's filing head of household. We may have asked some additional questions like, why isn't the mother claiming the dependent? The mother's not claiming the dependent because she is in prison. All right, that's a pretty good reason for her not to claim it, right? Taxpayers' expenses on Schedule C are for his Uber business, whatever, right? So you're going to put in all the questions that you asked, all the information that they provided to you, the same way you would as you're keeping your notes for your due diligence. The reason that you want to put it in here versus just putting it on a note or putting it in their file is we're going to generate a form for them to sign. So you enter who you obtain the information from, and you check this box that says check here to generate this worksheet for taxpayer signature. And when we hit save, I'm going to show you what it does. So when we go up here, we can use view print, and we can actually view everything that's currently attached to the return, right? What we're looking for is this one right here. It says 8867 prepare notes, and here's the due diligence. So here's everything that we typed into that box. And if we scroll down, there's a whole section here that says, by signing below, you verify that the above information was provided by you and is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge. And then the taxpayer can sign this. This is one of the few pages that I don't like doing remote signatures on because I can't guarantee that they actually read this. Not that it matters. They signed it. So they're saying it's accurate, right? This will save you in an audit. They cannot say, oh, I didn't tell them that. Yes, you did. I wrote it down and you signed it. So this is one of those features that I thoroughly enjoy inside this software. So going back into the software, right? We're going to verify again. So the only thing left now for us is the taxpayer PIN. So we're going to click here to update. And this is how you generate the PIN for your taxpayers. Really, really simple. You hit auto generate PIN, you hit enter by euro, and you hit save. That's it. Now we are completely done with this return. We're not in a place where I would have a complete button, but I'm going to show you what that complete button looks like by going to a prior year return so that you can see it. So I'm going to jump back to log into prior year. Give me this one because I know that wasn't filed. That one was amended. Okay, so if we go edit here, we go direct input, then we have a complete button up here at the top. And when we click complete, well, I have verify errors. Let me go to a different return because I don't want to mess with verify errors. Back. Let's do this one. Nope. Which one did I pull forward? This one. I really should complete more returns in here. Let's use this one. So if we go to complete, this is the complete box. As long as you have no verification errors, you will get, you mark the return as complete, mark the return as reviewed. You want to mark those as, so if you mark the return complete, you can complete the payment. If you mark the return reviewed, you can actually transmit the return after you've completed the payment. So in order to complete the payment and transmit the return, both of these questions must be answered yes. My advice to most of you guys, unless you have someone else that is going to be reviewing your returns, when you mark the return complete, mark the return reviewed. That way you can just continue. You don't have to come back into the return. So we're going to save and close, and I'm going to show you guys over here because I have the ability to work around this. And we're going to mark the return reviewed. So we finished the return. We have no more verification errors. So now it's time for us to get paid. So we're going to come down here to the bottom. We're going to click start payment. Yeah, it's not going to let me finish this payment, is it? Yep, I didn't think so. Let me save it. I'm curious if I can sneak around the system here. I doubt it. In my build, I have a demo build. Yeah. So I'm going to show you what the client payment looks like on a prior year. Let's see. Did I start the payment on this one? I did. So if you go and actually, you'll have start payment. And you know what? I'm going to show you from here. That way you guys can see what the bank application looks like. You also get a nice quick little preview here of our course. So I'm going right to the SimpleTAX University. We're going to go right over here to client payment. Oh, I need to log in first. No, you go there. There we go. Now I can go down here to client payment. And so I'm going to show you processing a bank product application. So once we click that, I'm going to open this up so we can see it in full screen, right? So we're going to click start payment. We're going to click add new invoice. Then we're going to select banking. So you see here, right, in the client payment details, the charges for the federal and the state. If we need to modify that, you just click modify charges. You got to add your discounts. You can add additional fees. If they're paying you up front, I'm going to show you that after this one. So we'll do banking, hit continue, and then you're going to select the payment type here. Check, direct deposit, go to bank if you're using TPG. These may be different depending on the bank that you are using. Add audit protection. So we're going to do click. We selected check. We're going to do save and continue. And you see that all of this information is pulled from the tax return, right? All the driver's license information, the physical address, their cell phone number. The only thing you will have to do is these check boxes here, and then the opt-ins. And then the very final step is to personally examine the unexpired government ID. We click that, and we hit save and continue. Now we get to the user agreement. So you can either view and print these from here just by clicking on the link and then printing those individual pages if you want, or you can do save and continue, and you can print it with the full and final tax return. So I always save it and then have them sign after I do the payment. Like I showed you guys before, either remote signature, whatever the case is, I have them sign the whole return, including the bank application, as opposed to individually printing out the bank pages. My advice to you guys, though, is in particular, if you're going to have them physically signed, anything to do with the bank application itself versus you not using the signature, if you're going to do one page, do the fee disclosure. Do the fee disclosure form, because if you do the fee disclosure form, they can actually initial, they can verify that the direct deposit information is correct, as well as they get a full breakdown of the fees. So they see it in front of them, and they can't come back later and say, I didn't know about these fees, or that's not my account number. So that's always my advice on that. But again, like I've said all day, however you guys want to do it. So I'm going to show you what the difference is between the bank product and the non-bank product. And honestly, the process is exactly the same. We're going to do start payment, add new invoice. And this is where I told you guys can modify the charges. You're going to go down and you're going to select non-banking. You're going to hit, then you hit continue, and then you mark the payment. And they pay you cash, they pay you check, money order, credit card. You're going to enter the amount. So we just chose cash. You want to make sure that you check this where it says, do you want to mark this invoice as completed? You want to mark no on that. And the reason for that is because if you mark yes and the customer changes their mind and they decide that they want a bank application, we have to reset. You would have to contact support so that we could reset the invoice, because you've already marked it closed and you don't have the ability to reopen an invoice. So I always tell everybody, mark that no. And then I always, do you want to e-file this return? I always mark no, because my next process after getting paid is to send them copies of their returns, like I showed you in the earlier section when we talked about printing the actual tax return and then sending remote signatures. I'm going to show you guys how to amend a return really quickly. Or actually, I'll show you how to transmit first. So once you've completed the client payment, you will get this fancy little button down here. Let me log in. Do I have prior year? That's all right. I'll do it from here. You'll get a button that says transmit now, and this is how easy transmitting is. Transmit now. So the return, just remember, the return must be marked complete and it must be marked reviewed. So we click transmit now. We're going to select what we want to send and we're going to click transmit now. That's it. It's gone. That's how fast it is. It's 3 clicks and you can send them off. Okay. The last thing I want to show you is how to amend a return. I'm going to go through 2 of these pretty quickly. One is actually creating an amendment. So once the return is marked complete, or once the return has been transmitted, in this case, this return was accepted, you want to click File Amended Return. You'll have a blue link under the Others section that will allow you to do this. You click File Amended Return. It's going to open up to this screen, and this is where you can get more information, but you also want to click File Amended Return here. Select what form you want to amend, hit Save and Continue, and then in here, you're just going to make the changes that you need to make. So in this case, we needed to change the withholding on the W-2. We typed it in wrong, no problem. So we didn't change that. Then you're going to go to that 1040X and you're going to save the 1040X. You sort of make sure that it's saved, and then you can hit complete. And then you go back, you do save and redirect, and that's how you do just a regular amendment, right? When we go to e-filing amended, it's slightly different. And the slight difference comes on the 1040X itself. You want to make sure that you mark the original return as e-filed and accepted, because you can only electronically file an amended return if the original was e-filed. If they paper filed the original return, then you have to paper file the amendment. You just save
Can I
and
ask a
continue.
question about that?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, so I have a client actually who was not in my system in the prior year. However, she wanted an amendment. So I put her information in the system, but I wanted to ask, do I have to go back and redo that entire file because she didn't file in our system? Because
No.
there's no way for me to e-file the amendment because it won't even give me the option to amend. So do I need to start over and click the amended return first, even though she wasn't in our system the year prior to that return?
Yes, and that's when you go into add new return.
Mm-hmm.
I'll show you. If you go new return, you want to do that 1040X.
So I should have clicked that one first.
Yeah, she doesn't exist. Otherwise, you have to recreate the original return, mark it paper filed, and then amend.
Also, I can mark that one paper file.
Sure. If you recreate the return, you can mark it paper filed, then mark it complete and reviewed.
Oh.
Complete the payment, right? And it will then give you the file amend option.
Oh, okay, thank you. So that's a really quick fix because I just didn't want to go back and re-put all of that information back in. So just the one that I have in my system, go ahead and mark it as complete, reviewed, and paper filed.
Yeah, look, I'll show you what I mean. So like I did, let's call it this one because I don't think we did. Yeah, perfect. Actually, I have to change the payment type. Hold on. Let me change this payment type because it can't do it on a bank product like that anyway. Well, let me do it. Save and continue. So this is an existing return, right? It has not been e-filed. It is eligible for e-file. But if I go back in and I edit this return and I go to the 8879 and I mark that it's going to be paper filed and save, it's going to want me to do the 8948, which is fine. So we just click there because we're going to do is bypass this anyway. We can just choose anything in here because it doesn't matter. We're not actually filing this return. So when I mark this thing complete, which I should be able to do, ignore and continue. See how it says paper filed? So e-file isn't even here because I said on the 8879 it's going to be paper file. So we can do save and redirect, and now I get the option to amend.
That is so awesome. Thank you. You are a lifesaver.
So that's a great question. I'm actually glad you brought it up because I know someone's going to run into that as well. But if they weren't your client, your best bet is to use that 1040X because trying to recreate the entire return as it was originally filed is difficult unless they have copies. If they have copies, then it's probably easier to go that route. But it's just a matter of, what the circumstance is. So knowing that how to do that puts you in a good spot. So
thanks again.
Yeah, I'm going to jump back here. Go away. There we go. Jump back to e-filing the amended. So in the scenario that we just talked about, if you were to do that and you wanted to e-file the amended, you would have to come back into the 8879 and just uncheck this box, generate the pins, and then click save. Then we can just mark it complete, save and redirect, and now we have the ability to transmit, and you'll see it says amended return ready to e-file. We click and transmit, and it's gone. So very, very simple process to amending and electronically e-filing amended returns. Okay, so we are done. Unless I'm going to open this up. You guys, if you have any questions, if there's something you want to see that I didn't show, please speak and we will get you the answers that you need. Okay, So I am either the greatest trainer on earth or I have put everyone to sleep. One of the two. I'm opting for I'm the greatest trainer on earth. So if there aren't any additional questions, I don't have any in the chat. I don't see anybody unmuted to ask any additional questions. I will tell you two things. One, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact customer support. We'll get you the answers. I also encourage all of you to go to SimpleTAX University, sign up, and take the Keep It Simple Tax Preparer course that we just created. I used some of those walkthroughs just a second ago to show you some things so that you get an idea of how that course is. That course does not cost you anything at all. It is a free course. You just have to create an account. So
even with our contractors that work for our office or through our office, they just need to create an account for the university. Because I know I purchased those packages, I think last year, and they were like $59.
that
So
was the boot camp. That was the
Right.
boot camp. That was on tax law, tax theory. This is specific to the software.
Okay, so just have them create their own accounts, or should I do a username password for them and just send it to them? What is your recommendation?
I would probably just have them go create their own accounts. It'll save you
Okay,
time.
great.
It's
Just
a
send
pretty
them a
easy
link.
process. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Someone asked if we can get a copy of the recorded webinar. Yes, absolutely. The webinar is being recorded. We will upload it to our YouTube channel and we will email everybody with a link so that you guys can access that. Someone asked to show how to create custom letters. I will. On letters, over here on the left-hand side, you go to letters and then you go to settings and you can click create new custom letter. And inside here, you can decide what type it is. It's a pre-session, it's a return detail, whatever the case is, and you can modify this any way that you want. On this right-hand side here, you have labels. So if you want to, let's say, instead of it saying, Dear Mr. Taxpayer, you want it to say the taxpayer name. If you double click, it'll say Dear Customer Name now instead of Dear Mr. Taxpayer. So you can adjust these any way you want, and there are certain things that are available as default labels for you. So if you wanted to create those letters, unfortunately, it is only letters. You can email your custom letters, but like copies of the return, that one is still going to be in English only for now. Did that answer your question, Marisol? Okay. You do have some reports in here. Someone asked about getting a birthday list. I do believe there is one. Yes. If you go to reports, you go to client reports. You can choose the day in the month. So start month, day, start end month. So let's say if I wanted to do the whole year, I would do 1/1, right? I can include dependent birthdays if I wanted to do that as well. If I just wanted taxpayers, then I could do view and it would give me their date of birth as well as their email and their address and phone number. And one of the things you can do with all of these reports is you can export them to Excel just by clicking the Excel button. And then it will save and you can open it up in Excel. And there's all that information. So if you wanted to have those imported for mailing labels or something like that, you could do that. You can also print mailing labels straight from here. It's under letters and mailing labels. You just select what you want to pull. Mailing labels are very easy. Printing, if anybody did not notice, there actually is no printing setup. It just doesn't exist. If you can print PDFs, it's pretty much if you can print, you can print. There's nothing in the software that would prevent you from printing. So just thought I'd add that on there. All right, do we have any other questions? Because this might be This might be, Chandra, thank you. I appreciate that. This might be the first time in history that we actually finished exactly on time. Exactly 1 o'clock. We said 11 to 1. I know somebody, I think it was Donna, said pointed out that we had put 11 p.m. My apologies. If somebody shows up in this webinar at 11 p.m., I hope they watch this video. I apologize for putting that, but I'm not going to stay up till 1 a.m. training on software. So you guys have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your week. Rest up. Get ready. Rest up before the holidays as much as you possibly can, because January 2nd is going to be here before we know it. So you guys have a wonderful week. And if you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to contact customer support. Thanks so much.